Broncos visiting the Saints. Just over 4 minutes to go. Denver up 26-3. Spencer Rattler is hit. The ball pops up in the air, picked off by Cody Barton. He takes it back 66 yards. Look around. Is this all right? Yeah, I guess it is. Gets a touchdown. Broncos cruise past New Orleans in this one. 33-10 is the final score. For more, we welcome in CBS Sports NFL analysts Emory Hunt and Ryan Wilson. And guys, we had a feeling it would be a struggle for the Saints with their top two receivers both out, and it was just that. Emory, what was your reaction to just how easily the Broncos beat the Saints in this one?
The Broncos dominated the point of attack on both sides of the ball, and it started with Bo Nix's legs on the first drive. When he started to take off and run, it calmed the pressure coming from the Saints side of things because they weren't getting pressure on him, which allowed him to sit back all day in the pocket and then find whoever he wanted to find in the passing game. Now, he didn't have success in the passing game, but because they were worried about his legs, then they started to run the football at the Saints defense. And what you saw was the Saints defensive line not be able to get off blocks, not stop guys from climbing to the second level. And these linebackers wasn't filling gaps. Defensive backs were taking bad angles on the run game. So when the Broncos just dominated the point of attack, that's when it kind of became obvious that the Saints were not going to win this ball game.
Emory, Madeline, I'm going to button up my jacket so you don't see my Spencer t-shirt that I wore pregame because I was bragging about my guy. Me and Emory sounded like two guys fighting over the girl at the high school dance. Emory, you can have her. I don't want her anymore. It ain't working out with Spencer. And Emory made the point, look, it ain't all Spencer's fault. Everyone on that team was injured, it felt like. They lost Paulson Adebo in the middle of the game. He had to go to the hospital with an injury. That's obviously concerned short-term and long-term. And Emory talked about the issues on the defense. Spencer Rattler does not play defense. They came into this game the absolute worst in the league, 32nd overall, defending the run out of shotgun. That first run that the Broncos had for a touchdown, Bo Nix in shotgun, handed off to Javonte Williams. He moonwalked through the A-gap, untouched 15 yards into the end zone, and that set the tone for the rest of the evening in terms of how that run defense was going to no-show. And the run defense struggled throughout the year, and that showed itself here tonight on the other side. The Broncos defense did the heavy lifting. Vance Joseph deserves a ton of credit. It feels like a year ago, because it was a year ago, they had a 70-burger hung on them in Miami against the Dolphins, and since then that defense has been lights out. So Vance gets a ton of credit. Bo Nix was okay. He wasn't great, but he didn't need to be. They leaned on the run game, and we saw how that turned out.
Hey, Vance Joseph, fair to say he was having the time of his life in this one right here. In the Battle of the Wardrobe, though, just got to say, your Spencer shirt, Ryan, and Emory's Denver-themed suit with the blue and the orange. Clearly, the suit won it this time, but we'll see how it goes the rest of the season. Now, Sean Payton, back in New Orleans for the first time, he won 152 games with the Saints as a head coach. This is only the second time in NFL history a head coach that has won 150 or more games with a franchise later faced that team as an opposing head coach. Last time this happened, Curly Lambeau, the Hall of Famer, lost at Green Bay with Washington in week 2. But this time, Sean Payton got the win against his former squad. So, Ryan, how good do you think this felt for Sean Payton?
I'm sure it felt pretty good. He did it with a rookie quarterback who, as I mentioned, has been okay. He hasn't been great. They lean on the run game, and the defense is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. This isn't what we're accustomed to seeing from Sean Payton-led teams because typically those teams started with Drew Brees. He doesn't have Drew Brees. Prior to Bo Nix, he had Russ Wilson. Of course, that didn't work out either. And this team is 4-3, and you have to be pretty excited about that when you're starting a rookie quarterback who's still sort of finding his way. I don't know if Bo Nix is going to be a good quarterback. I wasn't convinced he should have been a first-round pick. But Sean Payton didn't ask me what I thought. He took him 12th overall, started him right away, and he's had his ups and downs. And as Emory noted a moment ago, while he's not killing you through the air with his arm, his legs have been pretty impressive, and that's been a big part of his success early on. So if you can weather the storm with your defense, and we've talked about how good they are and how they're capable of doing that, and they did it without Patrick Surtain tonight, and they'll get him back soon, then you can sort of build that momentum offensively, building confidence in your young quarterback while he relies on that run game. So I'm sure Sean Payton feels great coming home, and I'm sure Drew Brees feels less so. He was honored tonight for getting inducted to the Saints Hall of Fame.
I feel like this was the game between two head coaches versus two coordinators. The Saints with Dennis Allen, who's their head coach, but he's more like a defensive coordinator, and Clint Kubiak, who is their offensive coordinator. But when you look on the other side, you have Sean Payton, a longtime head coach in New Orleans, and a great head coach, Super Bowl winning head coach, and Vance Joseph, who was a head football coach himself, and they just seemed like they were lockstep in what the other side was doing. Vance Joseph called a fantastic game, he was in the New Orleans Saints offensive huddle, it felt like, and Sean Payton seems like he was in Dennis Allen's head the whole time. And both sides of the ball for Denver went out there and executed. Offense didn't have many busts out there. I don't believe Bo Nix was sacked tonight. And on defense, it seems like they were lockstep with these wide receivers. They played their run rather well, took Alvin Kamara out of the ball game. And when you're playing great defense and great offense, you're going to dominate teams like they did. So I thought this was a masterclass of coaching. So, yes, it had to have felt good for Sean Payton, considering he left on weird circumstances. He wanted to take a break, and then he came back to not coach the Saints, but coach another team, and goes into that building where he won a Super Bowl and beat the team on Drew Brees night when he goes to the Saints Hall of Fame. So it had to feel good, because knowing how Sean Payton tends to be a little bit petty, which I love, but you like the fact that he went out there, got it done, and he dominated the coaching aspect of the game on both sides of the ball.
Who doesn't love a little petty, though, am I right? That's now 4 wins in 5 games for the Denver Broncos, and for Bo Nix, now tying Drew Lock and Hall of Famer John Elway for the most wins by a rookie starting quarterback in Broncos history, and counting, though. Broncos are 4-3 on the season. It's the first time since 2016 they're over 500 through 7 games. So, Ryan, how crazy is it to possibly start thinking playoffs for these Broncos? Playoffs?
Playoffs? Slow your roll, Madeline. Let's not get too crazy. So they beat the Saints team that had 4 healthy players on that team. Next week they face the Carolina Panthers. And then after that, things about to get real, okay? They're going to have the Ravens and then the Chiefs, the Falcons. So we'll find out in that 3-game stretch, and you can see the schedule here, exactly who the Broncos are. Now, you can lean on your defense for fits and starts, but you can't rely on them over 4 or 5 or 6 months to get you to where you want to go in January. Some of that's going to have to be taken over by the offense. We haven't quite seen that yet. And the one game where Bo Nix, I don't want to feel like I'm dumping on Bo Nix, but the one game he actually played pretty well with his arm was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they were incredibly banged up defensively. Hey, he completed the passes that were available to him. He's got to do more of that, but we'll find out over the next 5 games, Madeline and Emory, if this team is legit or not. I'm still holding out on that decision until I see how they do against some of these better teams here.
Yeah, I can't overlook the pass in the first quarter where he threw it to 2 wide open receivers, but it fell in between both of the guys.
Hit some wide open grass.
Exactly. He hit the open grass. That can't happen against the Baltimore Ravens, the Atlanta Falcons, the Kansas City Chiefs, whom they have to play twice. I just feel like the season for the Broncos starts in Week 9. They should take care of business against Carolina. The defense should help take care of business against Carolina, but we're going to know about this Broncos team against the Baltimore Ravens and then subsequently the Kansas City Chiefs. So Bo Nix definitely has to play better. Ryan is absolutely correct, because you could watch that game and still, squint and think maybe he was doing okay. It didn't rely on his arm, but it's more so his legs. When teams are forced to make Bo Nix beat them throwing the football, that's where they have the issues. That's where he has had his issues so far. They didn't get tested tonight against New Orleans, but best believe they'll get tested against Baltimore and also against Kansas City and the Falcons. So in those 3 stretches of games, we'll learn a lot about Bo Nix and where he has progressed as a rookie. But right now, good for the Broncos getting their run game going, because that's something that they needed to help balance out this offense and not put too much on Bo Nix. But that's where they're going to have to make sure that wasn't just a one-off tonight in the Superdome, that they are able to run the football consistently moving forward.
So not no. No. All right, let's talk a little bit about these Saints, though, because this felt like a very different Saints team that started off the season 2-0. They've now lost 5 straight games. Who knows how much longer they'll be without Derek Carr and Rashid Shaheed out for the season. So, Emory, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel here for these New Orleans Saints?
Now, when people say, do you see light at the end of the tunnel, that could also mean the train is coming down your way, right? Or something's coming to hit you. Because it doesn't look good for New Orleans right now, because they had no run game. They couldn't protect the quarterback. They had a lot of drop passes. But other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln, right? So nothing went right for New Orleans tonight. So they have to be better. And it didn't. We talked about this watching this game, Madeline, how the Saints just looked lethargic out there on both sides of the ball. And that's a coaching issue, because you had Sean Payton had his team ready to play. Why didn't Dennis Allen have his guys ready to play, especially on the side of the ball where you are an expert at defense? I thought the defense was just out there going through the motions, and at times it felt like they had 10 guys out there on defense. They felt like they were a man short with how easy the Broncos were just moving down the field. And that's a big issue. You lose Paulson Adebo tonight as well with a significant injury. You also had Marshawn Lattimore out with a hamstring later in the game. You know how that's going to linger. But this team was not ready to play. They didn't look good on offense. They couldn't do nothing on defense. This was a bad sign for New Orleans for the rest of the season.
All right, Emory Hunt and Ryan Wilson, thanks so much, as always, for the insight. A tough loss for the New Orleans Saints at home. But here's a look at what's coming up Sunday on CBS as Week 7 continues. In the early window, Jordan Love and the Packers take on C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Amari Cooper makes his Bills debut against the Titans, and Nick Chubb is back for the Browns as they face the Bengals. And then in the late window, Jaden Daniels leads the Commanders against the Panthers. You can also stream all the action on Paramount+.